All right, good evening, everyone. How's it going out there? Welcome back here to Thursday night, 10:18 p.m. That's California time here. 11 November 13th, 2025. Here's the date. Latest activity here on the earthquake 3D globe, if I can bring it up, shows a 1.0. Whoop-de-doo, right? Right across the California area. I'm still waiting on that big earthquake uptick that we're expecting here from all the high-speed solar wind stream, right? I get it. I do believe the sun has a part in the effects here on Earth, but we've been slammed here in the last 3 to 4 days here of solar weather activity, and I have yet to see any major earthquake uptick. Someone said you have to wait 3 days. Why do I have to wait 3 days? The activity was bombarding the planet in the last 3 days. What is so special about waiting 3 days now that it's quiet? That doesn't make sense. So, I'm writing that down. One for the books right there. That we had a major solar storm that did not play out for earthquake activity, similar to what happened back in May, right, of 2024. We had a major war event, no elevated earthquake activity. Come on. Look, I'm not lying to you guys here. Look at the largest activity here in the last 24 hours. Whoop-de-doo, a 5.7 down here across the Pacific Antarctica Ridge. That can happen on any given day, regardless of space weather activity, but it's been relatively light. We've only seen a couple fives here in the last couple days here, and very minimal earthquake activity. So, I'm pretty much convinced right there that that's one for the books. That did not elevate earthquake activity here on the planet. The waiting 3 days, it almost seems like, well, I don't even know what to compare that to. Why would the Earth react 3 days later after the arrival of the bombardment of the space weather activity? It doesn't make sense. That goes against what would cause earthquake activity if you're thinking about space weather activity, when it comes to the bombardment here on the planet. That doesn't mean I don't think that there's, some stuff out there that does affect the earthquake activity. I believe firmly more that it's the coronal hole activity that could stir up earthquake activity here on the planet. But we've seen almost similar to what happened in 2024 with the May solar storms in the last 3 or 4 days. And getting bombarded by protons. We're still getting bombarded by protons, and I wish I had something to show for it. Like look at all this earthquake activity, but I don't. That's foolish. It's hogwash, I think, when it comes to some of the space weather activity. For now. All right. So earlier today we did have a 3.5, but that it's a 3.5 in the Bay Area can happen regardless of space weather activity. If you're talking about elevated activity for space weather, we should see this massive amount of earthquake activity that's very prominent, and someone saying, or that would convince anyone, yes, look what happened here. Look at all this earthquake activity because we got hit with space weather. Well, it's just, I feel like I would just want to go like that because it's crazy. It's driving me nuts out here. Anyway. Okay, so earlier today, calm down, back on the level here, 3.5, Vallejo. That was earlier in the afternoon time period. Interesting quake, by the way. This off of the, it's really not associated with any fault system out here, at least according to the USGS map, but the Calaveras fault does run up northward a little bit more than what the USGS is showing. So that would make it a further northern earthquake there on the Calaveras fault. And that's, interesting because we just had a swarm out here in the last week on the Calaveras fault with a bunch of earthquake activity. We're talking about 69 to 70 earthquakes out here in the last week. That's a lot of activity here for just 7 days, with the largest being that 3.8. So it just goes to show you that there is some pressure going on out here across the Bay Area. We do have to watch a number of fault systems out there, and that includes, of course, the Hayward fault, San Andreas fault, Pleasanton fault. All these fault systems here are capable of producing some damaging earthquakes. Some movement up north here across the Northern California area. Nothing big. I mean, it's just, let's see if we got any tremor activity stirring up out here tonight, folks. Yeah, 119 right there across the southern coast of Oregon once again. And it's been in this general area because of that strike slip boundary earthquake activity that's been occurring out here recently. We had about 4 or 5 earthquakes. When earthquake activity strikes out there along the strike slip boundary, out here in this zone, you can see that out there in the oceanic crust, that applies further stress and strain down here, further pushing that Juan de Fuca plate, or the southern end of the Juan de Fuca plate underneath this area of the North American plate. So that's why tremor activity is occurring there, specifically in that zone. That's adding further stress and strain up there across the locked area, but nothing happening for now, though. As far as any major earthquake activity goes, we'll check out Mount St. Helens here real quick, see if there's anything stirring up out there across that volcano. It's been a couple days since I've checked it, so that's pretty well overblown, meaning that there's not a whole lot going on there. The previous UTC time, I don't see a whole lot of anything out there. Maybe one little earthquake there from early yesterday morning or so. That was early this morning, I should say. But really nothing of any noteworthy value up there across the Pacific Northwest for now. Southern California, we got inches of rain coming up here. This will be interesting to watch and see how all this rainfall reacts to the fault systems out here. I know sometimes it can take a little while to seep in, but maybe not. It might take just a couple days to see some elevated earthquake activity out here. More so than all this space weather activity, I would say. We'll have to see, though. Nothing major going on out there across Southern California for now. The last earthquake above 2.5 near the Ocatello region there in Southern California. Generally small microquake activity out there for now. Nothing major going on up there at Yellowstone. In fact, the latest earthquake was early this morning. But we'll double check that and see what's going on here. Let's see. Hello. Yellowstone National Park. Anything going on? Not a whole lot. Maybe some wind out there earlier, but there's a couple earthquakes this morning that they reported. But since then, nothing. I do like this seismograph station, though. It looks good as far as the amplitudes and the sensitivity goes. Nothing new across the oil fields of Texas. That's earthquake country out there. Hawaii, got a lot of activity stirring up out here across Hawaii recently. You notice that? Leading offshore, but the majority of this earthquake activity is relatively deep underneath this area, so there's a whole lot going on underneath this region. Maybe some renovation, remodeling of the system down there that fuels, the hot spot out here, right? The Hawaii Islands obviously created over time. You can track it back here through the Pacific Plate. This is the former Hawaii chains, and it's changed here. This massive change was a result of a blockage with the Pacific Plate that altered the course here of that hot spot. So as the Pacific Plate moves here over the hot spot, the mantle area, that will continue to, the Pacific Plate's moving off here to the northwest, right? Just a general map, show you guys, northwestward movement. As that's happening over the hot spot, it's creating, some new land out there. It's going to take a long time, though, a very long time, to create some new Hawaii Islands out there. So enjoy it for now, but we're definitely getting some earthquake activity out there underneath this region that's fairly deep. The last earthquake, though, a 4.2. I just want to see if we got anything changing across the Kilauea volcano for now. Because I think eventually here, the episodes that we're seeing out here with the Kilauea volcano eruption have to end. We're looking at episode 37 coming up here. We just had episode 36, lasted for about 5 or 6 hours. Now we're going back up. But, I don't think that's going to continue forever. It's an odd event for sure. But things have to change there across that Kilauea volcano area. But it looks like for now they're on tap to see another eruption here in a number of days. We just got through with episode 36, so obviously we've got some time there before that next episode stirs up. But interesting activity stirring up there across the deeper areas of Hawaii. Far as any major activity goes there across, well, look at this movement down south here. I know that the USGS is not covering that, but we do have some activity there in the Gulf of California region down here. The EMSC model is showing a couple fours down there, including a three-pointer. So watch, it's definitely been active out there across that area of the Gulf of California for a little while, so things are trying to adjust out there. Nothing major across South America area, just the typical clustering that's going on. 5.0 out in the mid-Atlantic ridge boundary. That's nothing new. That can happen on any given day. The swarm out there in the Turkey area is kind of taking a back seat for a little bit less activity stirring up out there. If I had to point an area out to watch for elevated activity, as far as at least in the last 24 hours, there's a little section up here. It looks like around the northern corner here of the Pacific Plate. Crow-Kamchatka, the Aleutian Trench, showing some elevated activity. That's somewhat heightened here today. A bunch of deeper movement there to the Middle America Trench. Notice all these pancake rings raised off the globe. That's indicated of some deeper earthquake activity. There's that little oddball earthquake activity up there from the in the Davis Strait area. This is probably some failed rift boundary earthquake activity out there. Sometimes we can see some odd movement. These plates are always in motion out here, and there's things that have happened, things that have almost happened, and as far as like subduction zones and rift boundaries, there's obviously a lot of earthquake activity out here in these regions that have had failed rift boundaries and stuff like that. It can happen. But, looking at the last 24 hours here, this is very minor last 4 days of earthquake activity out here. I'm really shocked here because I myself am a firm believer that space weather does affect earthquake activity out here, but this is one of those times here where it doesn't. It hasn't. And to wait 3 days, it makes me scratch my head. Why would you have to wait 3 days? What does 3 days have to do with it? That's like saying, well, this is just a window of opportunity. Maybe something big will happen in those 3 days. We've been dealing with this for 4 days now. Nothing's happened. There's no big elevated activity out here. Coronal hole activity, I think, has a little bit more playing part in it. And we do have a coronal hole out here. 95. 95 is facing north, though. It's got a northward point, so the magnetic lines here are shooting straight out from this, but probably north of the Earth-Sun plane. So I don't think we'll see any elevated earthquake activity from that. But, come on here. We've had multiple X flares, G4 class storms, auroras down to some pretty crazy locations, the magnetosphere getting slammed from a CME, the ionosphere getting charged like crazy. Earthquake activity just kind of floating low, just, hanging out very low on that category. I'm trying to keep a total tally of the space weather relationship between earthquake activity, and it's just this is going down in the book for right now for not being a cause of one. So that's a negative strike. Space weather activity. Let's double check this. Okay, so look at things are starting to mellow out. No more X flare activity. In fact, that sunspot out there, 4274, is just about ready to say see you later. See you later, alligator. And it's still fairly complex out there. I do think that thing will probably blast off some more X flare activity. It does have a chance to do it right now, but I think that will probably do some far side sunspot flaring once it gets out there. We're left with a whole lot of nothingness out here, besides that one coronal hole that's up here in the northern center area of the sun. So flare threat is going to drop, and it will drop like a rock once that is off of the Earth-facing side of the sun. For now, though, 30% chance there for X flare while it's still in view. M flare at 70% chance, 40% chance there for proton events. And this is I kind of had a thought here that the proton events stirred up the earthquake activity, but we were bombarded there for 4 days straight of heavy protons, and really nothing stirred up for earthquake activity. That's starting to die off right now as well. The aurora activity as well, and nothing really going on. We're not going to expect much as well there in the forecast. It looks like maybe a G1 class storm coming up here on the 16th. That's probably going to be from the high-speed solar wind stream, but that does have a northward point, so I don't really expect much from that. If it's more center disk, then yes. But all right, let's see what else we got out here for storminess. Southern California, I know you got some decent rainfall coming in there. Expect some potential flooding out there around Los Angeles area and the burn scars up around Malibu area. Watch out for that. But it is bringing sufficient rainfall, beneficial rainfall as well. This weekend, we'll have some more rain there across Northern California as another low-pressure system comes in. Southern California, you're getting in on it as well. Look at all these low-pressure cutoffs going on. That's that's fairly unusual to see that type of movement out there. But, hey, that's bringing rainfall to the West Coast. And then look at that massive cold pool coming in there to the West Coast. That's something we don't normally see out here in November. Wow. That's going to bring some low elevation snow there. That is crazy. I want to look at something here because we're talking about a displacement of all the cold air up north, supposedly supposed to scoot down here coming up here in December. Let's see what we got. So we got a little bit of warming going on up here across the polar regions that will displace all the colder air south. Right now, this is the 14th or so. Let's see what happens. Yeah, there's some high pressure ridging going on up there, but also over here across the Pacific up into Alaska. I don't like that. Hopefully that changes there, but this is just one weather model. These are not super accurate. It just gives maybe a good little model of what could happen out here, but obviously things can change here in the blink of an eye. Looking out long term here for precipitation accumulation, we do have quite a bit of rainfall across Southern California. I don't recall last time we've seen it this wet out here in November, but that's a good start. That's definitely a good start there for the winter out here across the West Coast. A lot of rain coming up here. As far as snowfall goes, total snowfall here. Yeah, it's Sierra Nevada mountains down across the southern Sierra as well, around Mammoth. Definitely getting on quite a bit of snowfall. Some movement up, or some snowfall up in the Dakotas, around the Great Lakes as well, but nothing major down here across the south. I guess these guys don't like snow, but I would like it. I love to put my truck there in a four-wheel drive and do a little bit of touring around in the snow. That'd be awesome. I barely get to use my four-wheel drive down here in the valley. Got to go up to the mountains here to be able to utilize that feature. But anyway, folks, it's just kind of a minor to moderate day of earthquake activity. Nothing big going on, and it's been that way for the past 3 to 4 days here. I just when you expect something cause and effect, right? That's what I'm looking for. The cause would be the space weather activity slamming into the planet, and there's multiple items there at play. You got the CME, the high-speed solar wind stream, the proton event, massive solar flares three X flares at least, and there has really been nothing going on here of any uptick earthquake activity. Okay, I'm not dodging that. I'm not saying that it definitely doesn't, but this is just one here in the book that does not ring to me that there's been some elevated earthquake activity because of the space weather. The 3 day thing is kind of crazy if you really think about it. Why should one have to wait 3 days after a massive amount of space weather activity? It just doesn't make sense. So anyway, we'll continue to watch this, see what happens here. It's been 3 or 4 days now of continuous activity, so okay, I'll give it another day. What's today? Day 4? Should we wait one more day? Day 5? I mean, how many days do we need to wait before we say, okay, this is probably not, it's not going to come up. There's no uptick going on here. Just got to be realistic here. Earthquake activity on the seismograph stations, not a whole lot going on there. Pretty quiet across the globe for now. We'll catch you guys out here in the morning for the is it really Friday? It is Friday tomorrow. Okay. All right then. Have a good one. We'll see you guys out here for the Friday morning update. And don't forget, here in about 7 days, we're going to be doing the member drawing coming up. We'll be picking out 3 winners. 3. 1, 2, 3. That increases your chance big time. Got a chance of winning some cash prizes there and some Earthmaster merchandise and whatnot for becoming a member. So, of course, extra videos, extra emojis, and the member giveaway is just my support to you guys for supporting me. Just kind of a way of saying thank you and whatnot. All right, have a good one, folks. We'll see you guys out here in the morning for the, again, the Friday morning update. Take care.